Continuing with template driven forms, we are done with ng model that is applied to a single HTML control. We'll see what model group is. ng model group directive is applied to HTML controls like div, but never to a form. So this model group is applied to controls like div, but not to input controls. These div controls hold some input controls in it. So this is a collection of some HTML controls. A form is also a collection of HTML controls like both div and input controls, whereas ng model is a collection of only or similar div and some input controls. But there is a difference between form and ng model group that we'll see in detail, which holds some input controls, and Angular creates a form group instance that is associated with that control. So ng model group also has a form group instance, whereas ng model has a form control instance. The usage of ng model group directive is optionally used, that is when HTML controls are represented category wise. Now we'll see what is the difference between ng model group and ng form. ng form we did not do yet. We have seen theoretical representation of ng model group, and we'll see an example on ng model group as well, and we know what ng model is, but we'll see the difference. ng model directive when applied to a single input control, and this is where we need to apply ng model. It gets onto a single input control. Angular generates an instance of form control class and associates that instance to the input field. So we have been using ng model. We have applied ng model to a single input control, and when we do that, Angular takes the responsibility and generates an instance of form control and associates that instance to the input field. ng model group directive when applied to a group of input controls, like let us say we have a div in which we have 3 to 4 input controls, and these 4 input controls will be placed inside a div, collection of input controls, and to this div we apply ng model group. When applied to a group of input controls, Angular generates an instance of form group, not a form control class, and associates that instance to the group of input fields. Now what is ng form then? ng form directive when applied to an HTML control, form control actually, Angular generates an instance of form group class and associates that instance to the form having group of input fields. So ng model is for a single input control, ng model group is for collection of input controls, that too for a div, whereas ng form is applied to a form. So let's see the last directive in template driven forms, that is ng form. When the ng form directive is applied to an HTML form, by default Angular does that, but what if we manually do that? Creates a form group instance that is associated with that form. A form group is a group of form controls or input fields. So you create a form and then you use the alias name, assign the ng form to it. So I'll have all this commented out, and I'll create ng form and I'll name it as #fname and assign ng form, and I'll save it. All this should be placed inside this actually. So now you don't see a form with ng form. So all this happens by default, nothing new. Now forms are received an event called ng submit, which is fired when a form is submitted. So we have an event. I'll have all this uncommented and now I'll save it. Let's see, I'll have a br and I better have alias names as 1, 2, 3 and 4. I pass 4, 3, 2 and 1. If I save all this, that's fine, and I can have a br and here I'll have input type equal to submit and value equal to submit. I'll save this, and now you see, so this is a form. This entire thing is a form in which I have certain controls, and I'll have a separate control over here, input type equal to radio, value equal to male, and I can have another one with female. If I save it, so these two male and female, and these two are, let me have a div with class container, and this div I'll place it over here. So if I save it, you see all this, but this is not a part of form, not a part of the div. This div I'll make it a ng model group. These anyhow are ng model and this is ng form. Okay, now if I click on this submit, this event gets read, ng submit equal to on submit is a method that I'll call. Here I'll have on submit and I'll pass ng form initially, or let me pass f name, and I receive over here f name, and I'll say console.log f name, and let's see what is the output. I have certain errors which are, if ng model is used within a form tag, either the name attribute must be set or the form control must be defined as standalone. So we can do this, the name attribute must be set. So whenever you use ng model, you are supposed to use name attribute of the input control. So let's say name equal to text1, and I'll have all this applied to rest of the text boxes. This is important. Now if I save it, now there is no error, everything's fine. This works good now. Now what we need to do is, once the form is submitted, the values given in form controls can be accessed using value property of the form like an object. So if I submit this form, let's see what we get in console, because I'm passing fname and I'm console logging that. So I see ng form again, and you see controls. What controls we have? We have all these controls. Text 1 is a form control, and we have a form group. And if I say this to be a ng model group, what I need to do? I need to say ng model group equal to a name for it, like ng model group equal to some name like div name. I name it as dname, and I say dname equal to an alias name, dname equal to ng model group. Now if I save it and I do the submit again, now you see form group controls, you see dname form group dname has values text 1. And why do I see text 1? Let's see what is that we are missing. Controls dname form group controls text 1. Likewise we need to get all the other text 1 is the only thing I have, text 1, text 3 and text 4. Now if I save it, if I do the submit, now see you have controls form group, control is form group, and we have controls dname in which we have all the 4 text boxes, and ng submit is what we have done, and the other properties which we learned initially. So we get everything coming from the HTML in fname. You pass fname, you receive it over here, and now you can say fname dot any of these, like you say controls and you say dname, or you say form group and then controls dname. So it's the same thing, controls. Now if I save it and you see dname, in dname I can get the values. I can use dname dot values, save it and click on the submit button. So let's see how do we get all the values, and also I am not filling anything. I say and I submit dname value. So let's try controls dot value and save this. So if I click on submit, it's undefined, maybe dname dot value. If I submit, I have all the values. So dname dot value dot text 1, text 4, text 3, text 2. Now if I type 1, 2, 3, 4 and click on submit, you see all the values coming in. So this is how you can create a form and get the values of a form into TypeScript using this. And once you get the values into the TypeScript, you can pass them to the web service. This all we'll see in coming sessions.